once again, AAHOA Chairman Pratik Patel.
All right. So you ready for the next phase? That doesn't sound like a lot of excitement, but I'm excited actually to bring you this next group of hospitality leaders. These professionals have first-hand experience in building their businesses from the ground up and growing their portfolios. They know what it's like to have a vision and to bring that vision to fruition. Now we can talk about RevPAR, market trends, cap rates, occupancy, ADR, demand, everything that we're accustomed to hearing at lodging conferences around the US. However, that's not what you're going to be hearing today. These panelists are here today to represent what is great about our industry and about our association. And it's these stories and experiences and journeys that they have that relates to everybody in this audience. Like us all, they've encountered obstacles along the way. But today, we will get great insight into how they've been able to be successful through their individual models. I believe that we will all learn something valuable from this impressive group. So without any further delays, please welcome our first panelist, Jay Patel, President and CEO, North Point Hospitality Group.
Thank you, Pratik. I'm going to spend a few minutes and talk about what has really enabled me to be successful. I joined my dad when I got out of college in 1990, had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. Didn't think I was going to be in the hotel business. I was going to go out, get my MBA, and do something grand, something bigger and better than what my family business was. My first job offer was $10,000 a year. I said, man, that's pretty bad. So I decided to go to work with my dad in our 42-room Best Western. Had no idea what I was doing. I was the general manager. I was the chief engineer, the executive housekeeper, the director of sales, and probably learned the most in in our business in the first year because I had to do everything. But the single most reason for my success has to be faith and trust. The unconditional faith and the 100% trust that my father had in me, and he handed over his business to a young kid out of college, had no idea what he was doing. I made a lot of mistakes, but there was one constant, and that constant was anytime I messed up, I'd go to my dad, I'd tell him, hey, something bad really happened. He wouldn't be happy, but at the end of the day, I always knew, he said, don't worry about it. We'll fix it. We'll take care of it. And even to this day, it's amazing what that does for a young kid and the confidence it brings in a young kid. And for that, I'm always grateful. It's a challenge, I know, because I have a 12 and a 15-year-old. I don't know if they're going to be in the business with me, but that handoff from generation to generation is very tough. And I have to say, I'm proud and honored that I have a father that handed off to me and is a reason for my success because of the faith and the trust that he's always had in me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Welcome. Jay is very modest, and he's also the son of one of our past chairmen, and so we appreciate his dedication to the association. Our next speaker, Mitch Patel, President and CEO, Vision Hospitality.
Thank you, Pratik. Good morning, AAHOA. So I'm honored to be back again this year for this panel. Come to think of it, I'm the only panelist back from last year, so I started thinking either I did a pretty good job last year or they're giving me a second chance at this thing. So I hope it's not the latter. Last year I spoke about my personal story and journey of how I grew up in this business. And because I grew up in this business, that's the last thing I wanted to do, was pursue this business as a career. So I went on to college to become an engineer. So I'm working as a civil engineer in Atlanta. I'm in my small cubicle, designing 2-lane roads to 4-lane roads. And my best friend was Mr. Watch. I had a different watch back then, but Mr. Watch. What time is lunch? When do I get to go home? Is that any way to live a life? So I'm blessed that I found my way back into this great business that we all love, right? And found something that's so important to success, and that is passion. If you have a passion for something, you're naturally going to work harder, will overcome those obstacles, and will find success. Because life is short, right? Aren't we all blessed that we get to wake up each and every morning and do what we love? So now that you have passion, what's next? Howard Schultz, the founder of Starbucks, said that culture will trump any business strategy any day. Why is that? Because he realized early on in his business career that he wasn't in the coffee business. He was in the people business. Guess what? We're also in the people business, okay? Too often at these conferences, we talk about the real estate, the product, amenities, the brand, but not enough about our most important asset, and it's our people. So if you surround yourself with fantastic people with great attitudes, place them in a position where they have the best chance to succeed, and most importantly, take care of them, you will be successful. So this business is about people. And to me, leadership is so important in leading those folks that you have to your vision. So happy team results to happy guest, right? And a happy team will follow your vision. To me, leadership is very simple. There's only two ways people are going to follow you. One is out of fear, which is never sustainable, or out of deep admiration and respect. Which way do you want to lead? Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. All right, our next speaker and panelist is based out of Iowa. Ravi Patel, president of Hawkeye Hotels. Come on out.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ravi Patel. As Pratt said, thank you very much for having all of us here today. I'll tell you a little bit about my background, my story, and we do have some parallels with Mitch and Jay as well. So when I was in college, I was studying something outside of hotels, management, entrepreneurship, other business-oriented ventures. I knew that if I wanted to be really good at this business, I wanted to go work for the titans of this business. So I went out to Las Vegas, interned at all the different mega resorts out there. My father gave me an opportunity like both of these gentlemen as well. And when I came back, it was 2008. It was during the credit crisis, and we had just lost financing on a hotel deal of ours. Our portfolio was fairly small at that time. It was a little over a handful of hotels, and I was 21 and very ambitious. My father placed a lot of trust in me, and he allowed me to pick whatever route I wanted in the business. He said, you want to go be a general manager, go do that. You want to come join us at corporate, do that. You want to lead up development, do that. So I realized very quickly that my expertise was going to be developing hotels, financing these properties. So I dove in, and quickly I realized that my father was going to let me make small mistakes as much as I wanted, right? And yes, I'm sorry, Dad, I lost you that $20,000 tying up a piece of land in somewhere in Texas and other areas as well, but he was not going to allow me to make the big mistakes. So I wanted to really scale up the hotel business during the downturn and take a contrarian approach, and I was looking at deals in California, Arizona, all over the place, and he definitely reined me back in. And at that time, I was a little bit upset by that. I was like, you know, why? Like, why is he not allowing me to fulfill our destiny of becoming this massive hotel company? And looking back on where we're at now, and I look back through those last 7-8 years, that was the smartest thing he could have done for me. A young, ambitious 21-year-old trying to go be extremely aggressive during that time probably wasn't the best growth strategy for us. But we've been very fortunate. We've been able to grow this company from a little over a handful of hotels to where we're at today. And then my life takes a little bit of a tangent in a few different ways. My family has also been extremely supportive of everything else I've wanted to be involved in as well. So I've been able to invest and support, advise over 20 other companies throughout Iowa, the East Coast, the West Coast, that are completely disrupting their various industries. So we've invested, and I've been on the boards of companies that are education technology, telemedicine, the film industry, you name it, a lot of different industries. And so one thing I've realized, and I think is really important for everyone, is you always look at the sphere around you, and you figure out what is the best and highest use of yourself to your family, the world, everything else. And I think Pratt's a great example of that. His best and highest use, he believed, was to be the leader of this organization. He's done an exceptional job at that, among a lot of other people in this room as well. So I think we should definitely all be thankful of everyone who wants to accomplish that, and I think that's extremely important, and that age should never be a precursor to anything that you want to do. I think that us as young people need to ensure that we're building the trust of our forefathers, and I think when we have that, they'll allow us to do whatever we want. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ravi. All right, so your next speaker is actually your elected young professional that sits on the AAHOA board. She also represents one of our most aspects of our membership, which is the woman hotelier. Let's introduce Binita Patel, Vice President at HMB Hotels.
Future Congressman is a tough act to follow, but I wanted to share some of my story with all of you today. I like to say that I was 5 years old when I started in the hotel business. That's when my father bought 2 days inns and moved us from New York to North Carolina. By the age of 10, I knew I wanted to be a hotelier. Every day there were new faces and new conversations, and that really excited me. It gave me a new adventure every single day that I was at the hotels. At 17, when I told my dad I wanted to go to the Swiss hotel schools, imagine my disappointment when he said no. He told me to get a general business degree. He didn't want to limit me to just the hospitality industry. He had firsthand experience at how difficult the business can be, and he aspired to give me and my brother a different path, an easier path. Because we were passionate about the industry, both of us still ended up in the hotel business. My parents' passion for the business and their drive to succeed motivated us to continue their legacy. In 2008, the economic downturn hit. We were in the process of developing a few projects at the time, but it was very clear that once those hotels were opened, I would have to move back into the operation side of the business. That was not that exciting to me. So I decided to apply to grad school. I applied only to Cornell, and I got in, and I graduated. But I don't really remember much of what was taught during those classes. Every day was just sort of a blur. But what I do remember, and what was most valuable to me from Cornell, was my alumni network. Everyone says that this is a relationship business, and it is. It takes both time and effort to develop relationships. I would not be where I am in my professional career without my network. And that all started with AAHOA, and it was strengthened by the Cornell network. I had access to everyone I needed to know in the hotel business between those two networks, and I fully took advantage of it. I still consciously try to meet at least 3 new people a day at any industry event that I go to. Our industry's small, and you'll begin seeing familiar faces when you go to different industry events, and that's a lot of fun for me. When I have a question about an unfamiliar market, or I can't decide on what brand I want to put on a specific hotel, that's when I pick up my phone, call someone within my network, and I have an answer within just a few minutes. It's such an important tool to have. I ran for AAHOA's Young Professional Director last year because I saw a void and an opportunity. The AAHOA Young Professionals were not being utilized to their fullest potential. We have an incredible network here, and I believe young professionals really need to be given the right tools to succeed, and developing a network is one of the most important things we can do. So I hope that all of you will see the value in a strong network and support our mission.
So if you heard, everybody has a story, right? And I think the whole membership is a story in itself, in our path and our vision. What you don't know, and which they are very humble in saying, is neither one of these panelists talked about their portfolio, where their companies are at currently. So real quickly, and we'll start with Ravi. Can you tell us about your company, what kind of businesses you're in, how many you have, the range of the market?
Sure. So on the hotel side of things, as I said, when we started, we had a little over a handful of hotels. And throughout the downturn, we took a very contrarian approach. We built a lot of hotels. We purchased a lot of hotels out of foreclosure, discount to replacements. And so we've grown that portfolio now to, just with Hawkeye, a little over 55 hotels, and we're partners in around another 30 assets as well. So we've had substantial growth on the hotel side. And then outside of that, as I alluded to earlier as well, we're investors in about over 20 startups and technology companies, telemedicine companies, things like that, that I truly believe are disrupting the world in a very positive way. So they're all social good companies.
Impressive. Mitch?
Sure, Pratik. So started the company in 1997 with one hotel and diligently grew it over the first, I would say, 7-8 years to about 8 hotels. Then 2009 came, right? The big storm. And, no one was immune to the downturn, no question. Our hotels were down, like many of your hotels in your portfolio were down as well. But we saw it as an opportunity. We saw it as an opportunity. This is the greatest country in the world, right? No question. The greatest people in the world. So we're very resilient people, and we know that. But in those times, it's tough to really understand that. So we had 8 hotels in 2009, and we looked at it as an opportunity. So I always quote Warren Buffett, who could argue with the greatest investor, right, in the world. So be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful. Greedy is a harsh word for the hospitality business, so I like the word opportunistic. So we were opportunistic when others were fearful, okay? So we took this company from 8 to 34, predominantly in the downturn. So we grew that portfolio when others weren't, and we saw it as a great opportunity, and I think there's always opportunities, guys, in this business. In good times and tough times, there may be more opportunities in the tough times. Always remember that.
Great. Jay, I saw the great news yesterday as well, so please.
Well, so since 1990, we've developed 25 hotels from ground up. Everything we own, we developed from ground up, primarily Hilton and Marriott. Currently, we have 3 under construction, $85 million total development cost. Another 4 that we'll break ground on by year end, about $155 million on those. And of the 3 out of those 4 is actually one development project in downtown Nashville that we're pretty excited about. It'll be the first tri-branded hotel in Marriott hotel, I think, in the world, definitely in the country. And like everybody else's pipeline, pipeline is very robust right now. We've got another 6 that we hope to break ground on in the next 24 months to the tune of a little less than $200 million. So the numbers keep getting bigger, the projects keep getting bigger, but we're still in that upscale select service space, primarily Hilton and Marriott. The Courtyards, Residence Inns, the power brands, and that's the company. It's always growing through development of our own. We manage our own hotels. We don't manage for anybody else, and we don't let anybody else manage for us.
Binita, the family business, tell us a little more about it.
Yeah. HMB currently has 14 properties in the portfolio. We have another 6 in the development pipeline. And the majority of our portfolio right now is ground up developed. We developed it, all managed by us. We have done third-party management occasionally, but it's not our preferred route. Recently, we've sort of ventured into the hotel note purchasing and note financing business, which we stumbled upon, but that's become quite a robust business on the side.
Got it. So that's a little bit about their background and where they're currently at. I think one of the most important topics that came out of your TED intros was probably the generational shift and the generational handover. And we see different models in place, right? Ravi, your model is a little particular. When you had the reins pulled back, go a little bit more into that. I mean, as far as aggression and looking back on that handoff, would you do anything different?
To be honest, I am very happy with how everything has unfolded. Initially coming in, as I said earlier, it was, yes, Ravi, I'm going to allow you to go do what you want to, right? Go scout these development deals, go look at acquisitions, learn, right? It was all about learn, and learn from your mistakes. So, yeah, maybe we gave up a little bit of earnest money when we tied up an asset, $5,000 here or there, and that wasn't a big deal, right? But Dad wasn't going to allow me to make the big mistakes, and thank God we didn't go build in Arizona or California during the tip of the downturn, right? So I think a lot of people made those mistakes. So there's such a big learning curve there, and I think a big part of this, I get this question a lot, Pratt, from younger hoteliers, like, your father has unleashed everything to you at this point, and he fully trusts you, so how did that happen, right? And a lot of times I always say it's been building for 7 years, right? It wasn't like overnight where he kind of gave everything up. It was, okay, well, now I know you're good at development, so I'll remove myself from that equation. Now I know that you're really good at finance, so I'll remove myself from that equation. Now I know that operationally you're really good at that, so I can remove myself from there. I know you could probably fix a dryer, but I really like doing that myself, so I'm going to keep doing that. But yeah, so it's little by little, it's step by step.
Got it. And I think the best advice that you could probably give some of the audience members is for that next generation that's getting into the business, right? I mean, when you get told no, when you get reined in, right? There's a level of frustration that overwhelms you at some point. What's your advice to them to kind of look back and say, look, holistically, how did you move past it? What would you tell them?
So my father and I always pushed back on one another, right? So it was constantly, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, no. And I would still keep going, and we'd always meet in the middle, right? We'd always meet in a point that we were both satisfied with, but the one rule of thumb we always had was no matter what kind of disagreement we have, no matter what happens at the office, it stays there, and when we go home, we're family, and that's it, right? So you have to leave that on one side of the table, and I think that will be very important for everybody moving forward. And I know that our parents push back on us and the kids are pushing. I think both of us having a mutual amount of respect for one another is going to be really important. So that's a piece of advice I'd give everybody. Make sure you're respecting your children and you're respecting your parents as well. Everybody's kind of living by each other's wishes. So
now Now, Jay, from the other side, from your story earlier, you had a father that didn't push back and kind of let you. What's your advice to the first generation that's in the crowd about the benefits of doing what he did and how he did and how it was important to you?
Sure. So, when you have that kind of relationship, guess what? The pressure is on you to perform. And, internally, I always made sure that no matter what happened, failure was just not an option, and I would, it doesn't matter how long the hours we all put in hours. It's our company, it's our business. But, the positive on that is it's a risk, but the positive on it from my side is I was going to make sure no matter what I did, what deal it was, what business it was going to make money, it was going to be positive, it was going to enable us to grow. And the other advantage I had is my dad's background was in banking, so he was a banker before he was a hotel owner. And so he always had the big picture view on business, in life. Our story is I never worked in a motel. We never owned a motel. The first hotel we owned was a full-service Ramada Inn in 1980. And so he had a general manager. So, from that I always saw, there's more value in the big picture. Don't sweat the little things. And so, again, the mistakes that were made, small mistakes, but always, to keep your eye on the big picture, keep your eye on growth, keep your eye on doing better tomorrow than what you're doing today.
Got it.
So Jay, during that, do you mind if during that time, were you going back to your father quite a bit, asking for advice on the big picture items, that kind of thing? Was he still involved during that process?
Oh, absolutely. He's involved today.
Okay.
He spends more time in the office today than I do. So, but it's great because that's his business. He's been working since he was 15 years old, and he's 75 and still working. So, there's always communication, and he knows everything we're doing. Some of the deals, I do the deal first and then let him know, so as they get bigger. But no, always communication, and that's absolutely the key. So.
Got it. Now I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Benita, you're part of a family business where it's you and you have a younger brother that's also in the business. Tell us a little bit about that dynamic and when it came to the generational handover or the pass me down that may be currently taking place.
I would say that we're still very much in the midst of a generational handoff. Anyone who knows my dad knows that he's very involved and probably will never give up full control. He just can't sit idle. He needs something to do at every hour of every day. So when it came to both my brother and I coming into the business, it was interesting how we sort of picked different things that we were good at. My brother has always been sort of more of the operational person. He likes the nitty-gritty, he likes the details, he likes going to the associates meetings and all of those types of things. So it was natural for him to take over the operation side of the business, and he's very much focused on development as well. So he's an integral part of our development pipeline. I, especially after Cornell, liked to focus on the finance side. So when our sort of side business of purchasing notes and doing note financing happened, that was sort of a natural progression for me. It's only been a year since I've been back at HMB. After Cornell, I worked in New York for a number of years, so they almost found a little spot for me to fit back into. And now I brought my asset management experience that I had in New York back to the family business.
Got it. So I think one aspect of that I want you to drill down a little further into is, what's your advice to the first generation out there? I know that, within you and your brother, and you were telling a story initially about how they passed you and how they treated both of you and how they let you grow into your own position. So if you could explain that as far as your advice to that first generation that's in the room.
Absolutely. I think for my parents, my brother and I were not different from each other. I was definitely a female and he was a male, and everyone always,
Happy to
especially
hear that. Thank you.
especially in the Indian culture, everyone assumes that the son stays with the family business and the daughter gets married off and sort of leaves. And my dad never assumed that that was going to be the case. He treated us both as identicals. We did the same things when we were working the front desk. We did the same thing when we were trying to open a hotel. When it came to education, we had the exact same opportunities. And when it came time to choosing what we wanted to do, he's never sort of pushed us to do one thing over the other. He wanted us to keep an open mind about everything. And I think that's what really drew us back into the business.
So, and that's the great part of that story, is that there was no pressure to come to the business, but it's something you naturally came back to. Mitch, your story is a little different. There was nothing that was given to you. You're the first one in the business itself from your family side. You did it kind of on your own. Explain that a little bit.
So, I did grow up in the business, right? So my father, like many of you guys in the room, came to this country with $8 in his pocket and the dream. So we moved into the 11-room motel, right, in California. And I remember cleaning rooms and doing all that. And because of that, I didn't care for it, right? So I studied engineering, which I mentioned earlier. And, my father said he discouraged me to get into the business as well, because he saw how hard he worked and what he did. Every father wants their children to do more and do better. That's why they made that huge sacrifice, the first generation, to come to this great country. You know how difficult that must be and what they did? So I remember this very clearly. Thank you. I remember this very clearly when I was in high school and I was looking at what I should do to study. And my dad said, no hotels, either be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, or chokri ni malse.
And for our other friends in the room, that means he's never getting married and finding a wife.
So I took the least of the three. And you know what? I didn't care for it, as I mentioned earlier. So my dad, again, continued to discourage me to get into the hotel business. He thought that, you know what, just pursue engineering. That's what you studied. That's what you should do. Don't be like what I did. And he was a food microbiologist and got into the motel business, right? Not the hotel business. So I didn't care for it. And that's what really drove me to doing something different. I didn't know at the time that I was going to love this business. You really don't know if you're going to love something until you do it. But guess what? When you love something, you're going to do better at it. That's for sure. So I saved up $5,000, working 3 years as an engineer in Atlanta. That's it. I didn't take a penny from my father. Okay? I want to do it on my own. And I needed to, this is a capital intensive business, right? I need a lot of equity. I borrowed every penny at 8, 10, 12% interest from friends and family, using my dad's reputation, of course, as collateral. You got to somehow still have that collateral. And got in this business. You know, I was the general contractor, right? Learned the trade, and then I literally took off my hard hat, put on a tie, and I'm the opening general manager. So learned every aspect of this business, like many of you in the room. Started with that one. It took me 3 years before I did the second one, third one. Even during this time as I was growing, my father was discouraging me. He's saying, I'm going to speak in Gujarati again, but kai kaam nathi biji hotel karwani. Is one not enough, right? But I want to do more. Check this out. By the fourth or fifth, he saw the success, and he had more confidence in me. He knew I was happy, and then he asked me, can I invest in your hotels?
There you go.
Yeah. Thank you.
So we hear the story, right? I mean, there's a lot of self-made, a lot of practices. Everybody's story in this room is kind of similar. We have a lot of that next generation that's here that says, how do I move forward, right? And from being where you were at initially to going on to the next. A lot of it dealt with motivation from the parenting side, right? But from a personal side, describe what drove you individually to want to do better and more. Ravi, looking at you.
Sure. I think it was a lot of intrinsic motivation, right? Internally, I wanted to do better. I wanted to prove myself, just like Mitch wanted to do as well, right? He wanted to make sure he got in and he got his chops wet, and you wanted to do it yourself, right? And then I think as you start to fall in love more and more with this business, it's really hard to remove yourself from that equation, and you want to get better every single day. You want to get better at, running your properties, experiencing the art of hospitalities, at building more. So we've become more and more vertically integrated as well. I mean, we have our own management company. We even have our own construction company for the times we want to build those hotels. So I wanted to master every trade. And that's why even when I went to Las Vegas and I worked in those mega resorts, what I asked for from that internship was, I think they got me an HR internship to begin with. And I was like, I don't want an HR internship. And they're like, well, what do you want? I was like, I want to be in every single department. I want to be on the casino floor. I want to be in finance. I want to be in HR. I want to do every single thing at that hotel so I can learn about it, right? And so when you take that and you bring it back, then I wanted to be involved in every single department of our management company, of construction, just as you put it earlier as well, right? You take your hard hat off, you put your tie on, and then you go to the bank, and then you go learn about insurance. And so I think it was very intrinsic that I definitely wanted to prove it for myself, but I also wanted to earn the trust of my father and my parents as well, right? So I wanted to show them that, yes, I could do this, and by working hard enough and learning enough, that trust was getting built up over time. And then finally, it was at a point where I think, I don't know, he might tell you differently, but I think he fully believes in me at this point. So to know that, we can fully run this company. So.
Well, I hope so. And, if he doesn't, I know he's not going to run for Congress or anything. So I think we'll be pretty safe on that portion. Mitch, your story, like I said, started on your own, kind of grew and developed. What drove you? What gave you that vision to go down that path?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I sound like a broken record, but passion, again, you got to go back to passion, right? So I remember, this is a good way to know if you're in the right business. The trade journal magazine that we get? The civil engineering magazine that I would get? I didn't want to open it. The latest sewer lines, water lines, signals, and I didn't care. I can't wait till those hotel magazines come on my desk now. And I devour every single one. And that's when you know you're in the right business, right? So I think it starts with that. And there's something that we say a lot in our company, and I think everyone could relate to this. Too often, we focus too much on improving our weaknesses and not playing off our strengths, right? We talked about that a little bit yesterday. So the squirrel in the tree and the fish in the sea, okay? Easy concept. What happens when you put the squirrel in the water? It drowns, or it gets so frustrated it leaves, okay? Now you've lost your best climber because of that. So I felt like I was a squirrel in the water when I was an engineer. I was drowning every single day. I was unhappy. Now I get to climb every single day, and I look forward, right, to getting up in the morning. I have a jump in my step, and that passion becomes contagious, right? Your team sees it. Remember, you're the leader. They're following you. And when you have that kind of passion and drive, then it makes it a lot easier. And then guess what? You have weaknesses. So I don't spend a lot of time with my weaknesses. I really don't. You should understand your weaknesses, always. But I don't spend a lot of time with that. Surround yourself with great people that could complement your weaknesses and build a fantastic team. And that's how you grow an organization.
Wow. So the next portion, Jay, I mean, I know you haven't spoke very highly of where your company at, the kind of deals that you do. You're in these big high-end urban markets. When I saw the release yesterday, I'm sitting there to myself thinking, damn, how would I ever get to one of those? Or I don't even know where to start, right? And so from your development track and moving the company where you took it, right? What was your thought process, and what drives you?
Well, here's the bottom line. Whether it's a $20 million deal or a $120 million deal, if it goes under, I don't have the 20 million, so I don't have the 120 million. But the bottom line is it's just zeros. No, in reality, again, we've made a concerted effort to really elevate the product. We've been fortunate, again, the last 20 hotels 19 of the last 20 that we've built are all Hilton and Marriott. So they're money makers, right? And so, we've had a nice platform, and we've always had a focus to stay small, and we've never had a focus to grow, and that's an internal, personal objective of mine. I never want to have 50 hotels, Ravi. I commend you. I don't know how do you do it? Our goal is we have 9 hotels that are open right now. We want to be between 10 and 15 hotels. So what we've really done is grow from the standpoint of the value of the asset, and not in numbers, but just the larger product in more urban, dense markets, higher value assets, because we don't have a large infrastructure operationally, and we've focused to keep it small. So really, our brain power is limited. It's myself, very involved on the development side. Obviously, I have a development team, so it takes the same amount of energy for me to do a $120 million deal as it does a $20 million deal. And that's what we really focused on, to grow in that manner, instead of doing 20 or 25 deals at a time.
Got it. Now, Binita, your story is different, right, from everybody else's. You've created a department, or you created a part of your company, your family business, that pertains to what your skill set and what you wanted to do is. How did you get to convincing him to go down that path, number one? And number two is, what are your plans? I mean, how are you going to take that to the next level, I think, with your experience?
Convincing them to do it was not difficult. My dad's very passionate about what he does, and he's, again, always pushed us to do what we want to do. So it was showing them where the value adds were and how much sort of ROI there was on any of the new skill sets that I was bringing back. Asset management is something that all of us as owner-operators do on a daily basis, but it wasn't until I went to an asset management class that I understood that's really what we do. And it's tough sometimes when you're always wearing your ownership hat to see that there is value in sort of reinvesting in your business. And if you're strictly an operator, it's tough to see the owner's point of view. And I think I've brought a little bit more balance to that equation back to the company. And I really want to see it sort of develop into a more robust discipline within the company. I think all of us can be better operators, whether it's tools that we learn through the brands or really focusing on what our guests want. Sometimes those things cost money, but in the long run, they're much more beneficial. Something as simple as linens, for example. I mean, it's, I think, our nature to find the cheapest sheets we can out there and put them into our hotels. But if you're replacing those sheets every 6 months instead of paying a little bit more and replacing them on an annual basis, that's cost savings. And I think it's focusing on those smaller things that I learned outside of the family business that's really adding value now.
Got it. And so one of the quick topics that I want to discuss is that many of you have gone and got educated in different areas and different fields and brought that back to hospitality without the initial intent of coming back to hospitality. Ravi, go through your experience. What part of your education really drove you in this business to take it to the next level? And how'd you apply it?
Yeah, so I always knew I was going to come into the hotel business. I always loved it. When Mitch was talking earlier about the hotel magazines, so it's actually pretty funny. Growing up, you'd always get asked to do these articles on, people brought in like little articles they do from the Wall Street Journal, and they do a one-pager. There's like, the New York Post, whatever it would be. Mine was always hotel management and hotel business, right? And I'd write an article on some embassy that was being built in Atlanta, wherever else, and that's what I always wanted to be in this business. So
AAHOA Business Lodging is the next one.
yes, exactly. That'll be
It's
for
coming for you.
yeah for the next generation as well. So I always knew I wanted to be in. When I went to school, though, I got degrees in management and entrepreneurship because I wanted to have a more entrepreneurial, innovative approach to how I was going to take over this company. I didn't want it to be in the same regimented way that I could go through a hotel program. So I wanted to take an outside approach to it. And I think that worked really well. Both of us spoke a little bit about how we really did take that approach throughout the downturn, right? So, I mean, we were taking massive risks and we were being fearless in a time where everyone else was not, right? We were making things happen instead of waiting for magic to happen. So I think that was one of the things I used from my education in the entrepreneurial and innovative realm. And then also tie it back to Las Vegas as well and learning about how those mega resorts and these massive corporate properties function. And I think it really gave me discipline as well, right? When you're working for an outside company, and I'm sure you might have some experiences with that as well, Mitch, right? When working for an engineering company where you have to be there at a certain time. You have to work hard. When you're working for someone, you're punching in and out. I mean, it gives you a lot of discipline that I think a lot of second generation who don't have that outside experience might not be able to see like what it's like to work for another company. So I highly recommend that, whether it's an internship or a year of experience outside. I think that's massively beneficial as well. So that's another piece of the education process.
Oh, fabulous advice. Mitch?
Sure. So education is so important. I think that's very clear. It teaches us logic, discipline. There's so much that you get out of education regardless of what you study. I mean, so many people in this room, they're engineers. They're PhDs in food microbiology. They're Dr. Shah, and got into the hotel business. Very successful. So the key is, study, of course. And I think, Ravi, you touched on this. It's very important is don't just go straight into the hotel business immediately after college. Go work. If you want to be in the hotel business, great. Go work for another hotel company. Go work for a larger hotel corporation, even if it's an assistant general manager position at a management company other than your own. I think that that's really important because, working for your own family company, there's going to be, it's a path of least resistance, right? If there's no one checking that you're going to be there, you need to report at 8 o'clock, then you probably won't report at 8 o'clock. So I remember my mama asked me that, hey, why don't you take your cousin under your wings and work for you? So I said, okay, he's going to have to work. Okay, he's going to have to work. I said, don't be late, 8 o'clock, be there at the office sharp. First day, he came in at 8:05, 8:10. And I told him that that's unacceptable. Next day, he came in on time. But by the fourth or fifth day, he was coming in late again. And then I had to tell my mama that he can no longer work for me. Okay? And he went on to do something else, which is fine. But I think education is so critical. And I go back to civil engineering, even though it's completely different than what I do today. But engineers, I'm sure there's a lot of engineers in this room, we're problem solvers. So I wouldn't take anything back of what I did and what I studied. It's who I am today, right? So, but regardless, I think education is so critical in your success.
Got it. Jay?
Obviously, education is important. I'll tell you, Mitch, my story, again, is just different. I was a marketing major, had no idea what I was going to do, no idea about getting into the hotel business. But, I had a great mentor in my dad. Everything I learned, I have to say I learned from him. I didn't, when I was in school, being in the hotel business it just was not on my radar. So, on the flip side, and again, not to, in today's environment, absolutely. It just, my personal story is different. I've never worked for anybody in my life. Always worked, and I never feel like I've worked for him. I always worked with him. So that was my education.
Great. Binita?
I'd like to echo their comments, but also say, I think the most valuable management lessons I learned were from being an employee when I was working outside the family business. I don't think you can really be an effective manager if you've never been managed. And I've had a ton of really great managers, and I've had some really terrible managers. And every one of those things was a learning opportunity. And to echo what you said, Jay, I think having mentors through this process is really important. So find someone that you find to be inspiring, find someone that you want to emulate, find someone that you'd be proud to know, and ask them for advice. There are a ton of people in this room that would be more than happy to have mentorees. So to the young professionals, find someone that you trust and have conversations with them, whether they're personal, whether they're professional. It's easier to talk to someone that doesn't know you on a daily basis.
So I'll add one thing to everything that's been set up here is it's very important what you're talking about in terms of mentors and mentees. That's extremely important. I think in our industry, you'll find that everyone is pretty open arms about teaching someone else, right? I know when I entered this world, my father was absolutely the best teacher. I learned everything I possibly could from him. And then outside of that, when I needed to get knowledge that I needed elsewhere, I would call other folks, like let's say Mehul Bai from Newcrest, or Nick or Al from Baywood, and Mitch. So I called Mitch because Mitch did this really cool downtown asset in Chattanooga that was 6-7 stories, and I wanted to do something very similar. So I called him and asked him a question. He's like, just fly down here. He's like, I'll show you all my plans. I'll go through the financials with you, all that kind of stuff. So I did. My father and I went down there, and we ended up building that hotel based on a lot of the advice that we got from Mitch. So I think you'll find that if you're trying to do something that's outside the box or you want to learn, there are so many different places and silos to go for that information. And I think that's one of the values of our organization and our culture, right? Our culture is a hospitality-oriented culture, so we're absolutely going to open the doors for anyone who wants to learn.
By the way, Ravi, I'm still waiting for my consulting check.
Well, and Ravi, I think you summed it up, right? The reason why our members, the folks in this room, own 1 out of every 2 hotels in the nation isn't because they had to go learn it all on their own, right? We relied on each other. So first of all, gentlemen, thank you, and Binita, thank you for the conversation today, but we're going to end with a takeaway, right? What's one piece of advice that you have for everybody in this audience, whether first generation or second, or even our partners, that you would want them to walk out of the room and say, look, I need to look into this? We'll start over with Binita.
Of course.
Of course.
I would say, don't focus on the numbers. It doesn't matter how many properties you own. It doesn't matter how many employees you have. What matters is that you're passionate about the industry, and whether that means that you're happy with one property or that you're driven to have a portfolio of 50. Do what makes you happy and stay in the industry because you want to, not because you're forced to.
Great advice. Jay.
I want to talk about a phrase that I'm pretty sure none of us have heard over the past 3 or 4 years: downturn. Okay? This is the greatest time to be in the hotel industry. I spend more time right now worrying about the next downturn. How many of us are thinking about the next downturn? Now, again, coming from being the son of a banker, but that's what we have to think about. Everybody's making money today. How's your company look 5 to 7 years from now? A downturn is coming. The only thing we don't know is when and why, right? And I've been through 2 downturns, and imagine if your company is in a position to take advantage of the downturn. Everybody here is taking advantage of the upturn. I want to put our company in position 5 to 7 years from now, where that's when the real fun is in the downturn. And the other thing I'd say is mistakes are never made in the downturn. All the mistakes that we make are being made right now. All the wrong deals, the deals that we shouldn't be doing, and I focus on that. We've got a huge pipeline, but that's what worries me today is the next downturn.
Great. All right.
So Jay, you took my topic with the downturn, so I'm going to go to something else. So, no question. This is a cyclical business, so I echo what Jay says. So, You know, there's a recipe for success, in my opinion. Number one, it starts with passion. It starts and ends with passion. Again, you can't be good at something if you don't love it. It's a key word, right? And then two, you got to set your vision, right? Of where you want to be and where you want to go with your company. It's so important. And I was saying this earlier, there's nothing wrong with being ambitious, okay? So Michelangelo, I love this quote. You know, he says our greatest danger is that we set our goals too low and we reach it. Aim high, aim for the sky, and get close. So set your vision high. It should be ambitious. And then three, and I think it's so important, and the most important in my opinion, is culture. If you look at the greatest companies in the world, they have the greatest cultures. That's how you define greatness, in my opinion, is to have a fantastic culture. We have a fantastic culture in our company, and as Jay said, you know, we have to be mindful of the downturns, but we're so confident because of our model and our culture that we're going to be successful in good times and, more importantly, in tough times.
Ravi.
Yeah, I'll end with something I started with, right? Which is find out what the best and highest use of yourself is, right? What are you the absolute best at? And as Mitch pointed out earlier, find a way to surround yourselves with the folks who can supplement the areas where you aren't good, because I think that's what elevates you to the next level, right? So that's one piece of it. Secondly, I would say I'll reflect back on something that's been a theme of everything I've spoke about, which is trust, right? So give trust, get trust, and I think that works for both generations. I hope we have a lot of second-generation hoteliers in this room who are really looking to start garnering that more and more every single day. So I think cultivating that is extremely important. And lastly, I'll end with have fun. I mean, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, there's something seriously wrong, right? So absolutely enjoy this. I mean, this is the greatest industry in the world. This is the greatest country in the world. Enjoy your career, because we spend our entire lives doing this. All of us up here, I'm sure all of you in this room, put at least 80 hours a week into what you're doing. And if you're not having fun doing that, there's something seriously wrong. So enjoy yourselves.
That's great advice, Ravi. So ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our panel. Please give another round of applause to our panelists up here. I'm going to ask Ravi to stick around. Thank you, gentlemen. And Binita.
Thanks. Great job.